Welcome to the Point Out Loud Women Trailblazers Podcast Series 7 of Pointers Leading in Wellness, brought to you by the Southman Center for Women's Leadership. Here at UW-Stevens Point, we believe that meaningful change begins with students and leaders who are committed to shaping a more inclusive, innovative, and empowered campus.
This series highlights the voices of passionate women in wellness, such as students and professionals and advocates who are making a meaningful impact in their communities. From campus initiatives to workplace programs, these leaders are redefining what it means to lead with health, compassion, and purpose.
As Frida Kahlo once said, at the end of the day, we can endure much more than we think we can. Today, we honor the women showing resilience and courage in every step they take. Today, we have Dr. Sallie Scovill, a professor in the School of Health Science and Wellness at UW-Stevens Point, and a nationally recognized leader in the wellness field. Since 2007, she's helped transform UWSP into a model wellness campus through initiatives like the Tobacco-Free Transition and the Move for Mental Health Walk. Beyond campus, Sallie serves on the board of the Wellness Council of Wisconsin and continues to inspire others through her leadership and passion for creating a meaningful community-centered change.
Thanks for joining us. These next few minutes with Dr. Sallie Scovill, man, it is high impact. She talks about attitude of gratitude, gathering your champions, and she walks us through, over her long career, the shifts that she's seen in cultural perceptions of wellness. Let's dive in.
Welcome, Dr. Sallie. How are you doing today?
It is a great Friday afternoon, sunny outside. Can't have any better.
Amazing. So we'd love to start by having you tell us a little bit about yourself and your backstory.
Well, it's a long backstory. I don't know we have enough time, so I'll try to make it as short as possible, right?
A woman with a good story. Is that who you say you are?
Well, I've also lived a long time and have multiple careers. So if you can tell, I'm not from Wisconsin. I grew up in Nashville, Tennessee, where all my family still lives. But I grew up a very active kid, but very shy, if you believe that. For those who know me would be shocked, but I was very easily influenced by my peers and had an older sister that influenced me and some other people to try to fit in. And I got into some very unhealthy habits that pulled me away from my active, loving the outdoors, a very active lifestyle as a child. And I don't have to go into a lot of detail, but probably most people know what a lot of people did in late high school and college. But I was a smoker and other activities, and it was really starting to influence me as I got out of college. My undergrad's in political science, and I thought, what do I need to do to change these habits? It was getting quite distressing to me, and I started working out. So I was in my mid-20s. I started working out, but I would still leave the gym and smoke a cigarette, which just sounds kind of silly, and then I would still meet up with my friends and have too much on the weekends. And I thought, this is not, that was just quite a juxtaposition of healthy on one side, not. And I just started looking into what can I do to be healthier. Wellness wasn't a big thing in the late 80s, but fitness was. And so the fitness really helped pull me away from a lot of those unhealthy habits. And I decided to change careers and pursue fitness or wellness or whatever was going on then, and quit smoking, and I quit all my other unhealthy things, except I do drink too much caffeine and eat sweets. So I got a few bad habits. I'm not perfect. And then I thought, well, how do I make a career in this? And, started looking into what are the careers in health and wellness, and wellness was just starting to take off at companies, and they were putting in corporate fitness centers. And I thought, that's what I want to do. And started working in that field. And 35 years later, here I am teaching it to students. So it's had a lot of evolution from working with I've built corporate fitness centers. I've run wellness programs for other companies. I worked for a hospital. I worked for Vanderbilt Hospital for 7 years, and I did all their outreach into the community to other companies and community organizations to take wellness programs out into Middle Tennessee, Southern Kentucky, those types of places. And it was really rewarding, and started pursuing my doctorate to start teaching. I took students in and thought, there's a lot that I feel like students are missing that are coming out of school as either new employees, or I took in a lot of interns. And I thought, there's something they're missing. And I like the consulting part and I like the teaching part. So how can I combine that? And I got a job offer after a bunch of interviews when I finished my PhD, and I thought, Wisconsin? They have snow. I'm a Southern girl. I don't know about that. But my husband's retired in the military, and he said, I'm retired. If we don't like it, we can move, which doesn't, wasn't a very logical way to think of it. Like, oh, we can just move if we don't like it. But that's what I said. Okay, let's go. And now here I am in year 19 at UW-Stevens Point, still teaching health and wellness. And, my expertise in managing wellness programs is still trying to go strong, helping our employees learn more about being healthy and well.
Yeah.
So that's it in a nutshell.
Yeah, that's a beautiful, beautiful nutshell. Thanks for choosing us, Sallie. We are just really, really lucky. And we know that for sure because one of your students, Carissa, joined us in this series, and she had a lot of great stuff to say about you. So it's a perfect lead in. I know you've played a role in the 7 dimensions of wellness research and practice. Can you tell us a little bit about that too?
Yeah, the 7 dimensions of wellness, I really like the holistic view of it. I was talking to a student yesterday, and I feel like I'm one of the few generalists in wellness left in our kind of our School of Health Sciences and Wellness. Not that other people don't believe, but I've practiced in a lot of the different areas. But in the late 1970s, the National Wellness Institute, which used to be headquartered in Stevens Point, developed the 6th dimension of wellness from faculty and staff who worked for UW-Stevens Point and some of their colleagues. And then we expanded on it in the early 1980s and added the environmental dimension. So the 7 dimensions, for people that aren't familiar, are social, physical, emotional, career, intellectual, environmental, and spiritual. But because of UW-Stevens Point environmental focus, our own major decided to add that environmental piece for the 7 dimensions. And so the first graduating class in a wellness major, I believe, was in 1984. And I was not involved in any of this, but really promoting the 7 dimensions as a model for wellness has been something that, I've been practicing for a long time and trying to teach our students about it, trying to go out and present to organizations, to our own employees. We did a survey years ago. We've done 3 interest and knowledge surveys about wellness and culture, and found that this was probably about 10 years ago, that many of our employees didn't know what the 7 dimensions were. And I think because there's just been so much turnover, so I've really worked since then to continue to try to promote the 7 dimensions on campus, so that whenever we do a program, we try to emphasize we're going to do yoga, and that I feel like that's part of the not just physical dimension, but maybe emotional and spiritual dimensions, so that we try to always relate what we're doing to those dimensions. And that's what I'm doing this weekend for the general education class. I'm taking a class of general education students to Tree Haven, our field station. It's about an hour and a half north, to do a 7-dimensional wellness retreat for their wellness credit, because they don't know it either. So I continue to teach it to students, and I don't know that I'm teaching it, I'd say promoting it to our employees at UW-Stevens Point.
Yeah, thank you.
That's a lot. So I see that you're very passionate in the 7 dimensions of wellness and promoting it as much as possible. Have you faced any big challenges while trying to promote in higher education?
Yes, I have. As I said, wellness, I feel like, was fairly strong in the 7 dimensions. But again, when you have turnover in staff that aren't, on department chairs and in chancellors and people like that, you feel like you're constantly educating and promoting it again. And some of our challenges, I've been there through several chancellors, and every time I feel like I'm making progress, there's turnover. And then we're making progress, there's turnover. And I'm now on the strategic planning committee. And one of the themes, and because our chancellor and provost asked me to be there, now that chancellor's left. So I'm really hoping that we'll be able to continue. We're regrouping this semester. I feel like we've lost some momentum. So I'm hoping that we'll be able to promote that again, and wellness will continue to stay as part of the strategic plan. Again, sometimes, some of our own challenges, even our own department at times, that we're all believers in wellness in the School of Health Sciences and Wellness. And I know other people are also, but everybody's so busy doing their own thing that often we forget that that's the model that we use and try to promote it. We did a pretty good job last year promoting it within our own department. So again, I feel like it's a constant re-education sometimes with the turnover, but I know that people really understand the model, see that wellness has become more holistic, especially with mental, emotional health, social wellness after the pandemic. I think people are starting to understand it more when we do talk about it.
Yeah. It seems like one of the things that you've done to kind of counteract this turnover issue is that you've also gotten to be on impactful projects that sometimes lead to sustained change because maybe they're policy-based or event-based. I'm particularly thinking about things you've done on the tobacco-free campus or the Move for Mental Health. So I have two questions for you. First, does the name Anna Howe ring a bell? Was she part of, I think, she was a student, part of the tobacco-free campus work, right?
Yeah, I think she may in health sciences, or there was another student that was on the student wellness advisory group that through SGA.
Yeah, that was it. She was through SGA. So I know she's also really proud of that work. Okay, sorry, that we like shout outs here, right? Shout out to Anna. So anyway, thinking about your initiatives as a way to kind of counter that turnover, right? Because you change policy. What initiative has meant the most to you and why?
I would probably say the tobacco-free campus, because as an ex-smoker, I mean, as I mentioned in my very brief, introduction, that I started smoking in high school to fit in with a crowd that I probably really didn't fit into, and quit because I started working out and getting really into fitness. And this was kind of an anathema to my lifestyle. And I've become very passionate. I'm certified in a couple of different tobacco cessation programs to teach. And I came to Stevens Point, known as the home of wellness, and thought, why aren't we tobacco free on our campus? And started making connections and realized some other people had tried to promote it. And so formed a coalition of people that were really passionate about it. It took 7 years from the time I started with other people, I won't say just me, but other people working on this before we got it to pass and it got implemented. So that was, again, you'd get it to a place, then something would happen. You'd get it to a place, the staff would support it, the students wouldn't, the students would support it, the staff wouldn't, the chancellor turned over. So again, it was this constant challenge to meet with these groups to ensure them we're not going to be, coming throwing cigarettes out of their hand and throwing them off campus.
Yeah.
But again, it just was quite, and I think once we got a coalition and assure people we're not smoking banners. We just want people to be healthier. And if we're known for wellness, then we should walk our talk. And Chancellor Patterson, the very first time I met him, walked up and said, "Oh, you're the wellness person. Why aren't we tobacco free?" I'm like, "Oh,
it was like you heard sounds from the heavens, huh?"
So he wouldn't necessarily say, "I want it to happen" to other people. He really let the progress be organic, and I give him credit for that. But we were finally able to pass it, and took a year for implementation. I think that really was what made it more successful.
Yeah.
But to work on it for 7 years before we went there is, not to give up.
Yeah. So I'm hearing that from you. So listeners, Sallie has something to teach us about wellness at the institutional level. Wellness at the institutional level has this challenge that change happens, right? And people move on, and making a commitment to wellness is a long-term effort. And the two things that can get you through that long-term effort are build a coalition and stick with it, right?
Yeah, and that's what you really need are champions. And we sent out an email last year and tried to recruit wellness champions. And I have not been able to follow up on it, but here in the next couple of weeks before Thanksgiving, I want to follow up on those people who volunteered to be wellness champions and get them together at the first of the year and do some training about what's the expectation, which is really just promoting wellness. It's not a heavy lift for them, because I think when you have wellness champions that are in the other departments, that isn't the wellness people, the student health people, or whatever, the ones you expect to be the standard bearers. Those other people that are promoting wellness in their departments or in their schools, I think that's what's really going to help continue to move wellness forward on this campus. And so building that coalition of champions is going to be really important.
Great example.
Very good. Yeah. Long time ago, which is crazy.
Right?
To think about. Wow. So I hear that because you're talking about all your different experiences and past jobs, you're a very, very busy person, such as like professor, coordinator, community leader. How do you personally maintain balance and prioritize your own well-being? I would love to know, because I need to prioritize my own well-being sometimes too.
Well, I think our listeners might be agreeing with you, Kelsey. So Sallie, help us all.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know that I'm the expert in that. I'm sitting here with my can of Diet Pepsi with my caffeine in it, which is one of the few things that I have left of trying to be healthy. But I don't know about prioritizing. I do get overloaded because I do take on a lot. I have a lot of passions. But one of the things that I do is I try to at least exercise every day if possible, even if it's just walking my dogs. And thank goodness I live out in the middle of nowhere and I have a very long driveway. And if I walk my driveway up and down, I've gotten almost a mile in. So I can go check the mail and get a nice long walk in. So even in the dark, I walk in the dark in the wintertime. I walk in the cold. Being outside just gives me a real sense of peace. The other thing that I do, and I've been doing this I've been trying to figure out how long, for about 25 or more years. A very good friend of mine suggested I start a gratitude journal. And she gave me a journal with enough space to write 3 things in it. She goes, nothing more, no repeats. You can't write the same thing every day. Like, I love my job, I love my job, I love my job. So for 25 years, I've been doing 3 things every day. I now went from a hard copy. It's now in a Google Doc. So it's on my phone. So as soon as I wake up, I have no excuse when I turn off the alarm to get my phone and write my 3 gratitudes. And they're really silly sometimes. My gratitude yesterday was, I had those little things that happen during the day that aren't bad, but they keep setting you back. And I still prioritize, okay, I can't work it as long as I want to, but I'm going to go work out anyway. And I was rushing around, but I put that in and, didn't think about other stuff when I went over there and did it, quick. I did about 50 minutes, but it was better than nothing. And, I put those things on my gratitude. So my friends said, an attitude of gratitude. It's a great way to start the day. So I'd say those are the 2 biggest things I've been consistent with. That whole work-life, I don't like the term work-life balance at all, because to me, it implies that life is separate than work. But to me, it's that whole life integration of how do we do work. And sometimes I do good at it and other times I don't. My friends always tell me, my husband too, that I do too much. So
hey, listeners, anyone out there ever heard that before? Kelsey, ever heard that before?
Yes, I definitely have. Yep, I do too much.
Yeah, I believe this is the classic refrain that many of us hear. Yeah, Mac is nodding her head. She's edited our podcast, so she's heard them over and over and over again. And so, Sallie, we want to thank you for acknowledging that you do too much and teaching us.
No, I do appreciate it, because I know that I do too much. And I'm 22. I'm young, and I do way, way, way too much. So hearing somebody else say it, that they also do too much, makes me feel better.
Yeah. Well, I'm 63, and I don't mind telling my age, and I still haven't learned it very well. But I have passions that I try to pursue, and sometimes I don't prioritize them as much as I could. But for my own wellness, it might sound silly, but just going and walking the dogs and doing my 3 gratitudes sometimes, or even just going to the fitness center yesterday because I didn't have time to get back home in between competing demands yesterday. But those were 2 things that were consistent yesterday. I got to exercise and I did my gratitude list. But I'm also, my students like it. I've been implementing something in my classes lately that I don't know that it helps me with doing too much, but it helps me again with that attitude of gratitude. I start every class with a positivity. And sometimes they're really silly. Yesterday, we went into that conservatory over in the biology building that has all the plants. And I said, smell, touch, and see, and think, see what you feel. And we did 5 minutes. We came back to class. And then they said, can we go there every day? Sometimes we might do mindfulness. And on Halloween, I gave them little candies, and they think I'm goofy, but they really actually have come to enjoy the positivities that we start every single class with. And that helps me when I get stressed and overwhelmed also, that I don't slip into negativity, that I try to practice what I preach. Not that we can't not have to walk around Pollyanna all the time, but at least say, there are things that can be good even when things go bad.
Oh, I like that.
You like that?
Things can go good even if they go bad. Like sometimes I'll have very bad days and I'll just give up. But then I'll come home and be like, you know what? It really wasn't that bad. It could have been a lot better, but it's okay. It's just one of those days.
Yeah. Yeah, I love it.
That was like my laundry list yesterday of just little bitty things that I kept realizing, I forgot my coat here. I left my keys here. I forgot my tennis shoes and I had to go back and get them. I went to the gas station and I was running late. You have to pay with your card inside because at the card reader, I'm like, it just figures, it's just those little things. And I laughed with the guy in the gas station and he's like, bad day. I said, no, really, it's just one of those things that those little things keep happening and and I'm not always like that. So I don't want to come off, people go, that's not the Sally I know. Because I'm not like that all the time. So I have to be honest with that too. But on the days I can do that, the days go better. On the days I don't do that, they're not probably some of the better days. And we've had a challenging week at home this week, and that, trying to deal with that and get over that is just part of life.
Yeah. Well, I'm sorry you had a rough week at home. Kelsey was nodding though, just now, nodding really vigorously. So she's really relating to what you're saying.
Yeah. I feel like last week, it was really tough. It was a tough week for a lot of people I've noticed. A lot of people are getting sick. A lot of people are just overwhelmed because I feel like with the winter coming and such, everything has to be prepped. Housework needs to be done so you don't stay cold. I don't know. There's just a lot going on in life right now, I feel like.
Yeah, and it's the start of the holidays. Remember, we've officially, we probably shouldn't go into that too much. But, okay, so...
And maybe it's just the change in time when all of a sudden it starts getting dark and everybody's just like, oh.
Yes,
oh my gosh, you have no idea.
Yeah, you got us on dark. We're all on dark. Okay, we've agreed. It's the dark. So, Sally, you did this brilliant thing just now. We asked you about yourself, and you used yourself to teach us. And you've been doing that for a really long time. Your transformation is at the center of how you bring wellness into the world. So thank you for that. And thank you for teaching us how to be goofy and how to have an attitude of gratitude and how to, squeeze that exercise in, even when you said competing priorities, competing demands, right? How to live in that world. I'm feeling the power of your ability to teach right now in just a few minutes with you. What's going on with you and your students, and how has your interaction with your students and maybe the kind of cultural understanding of wellness, how has that shifted over the years?
Well, even from my own story, I started out working out and thinking more on the physical, and wellness in general used to be very focused on the physical. When I started, it was health screenings and health risk appraisals and lower your cholesterol and lower your blood sugar and check your blood pressure and get more exercise and eat less. And that was just the field. We didn't talk as much about the other dimensions of wellness, and I wasn't as aware of them early in my career in the early 1990s. And as I became more aware, and especially throughout life, also realizing that there's this connection that I can tell people, and that's we used to do wellness to people, I think, more than here's what you need to do.
Yeah.
And wellness has changed. Thank goodness we're moving away from that, and we're partnering with people. But there's so much recognition that I could tell somebody to diet and exercise, but if they've got other things going on, they're not going to. And I learned a lesson the hard way and when I worked for Vanderbilt for the hospital, we were doing community outreach for an underserved community, an African American community in Nashville. And Vanderbilt donated their time and supplies of people to go do health screenings at these churches. And, my background is a child of suburbia, and I didn't grow up in that area. So I'm coming from a different paradigm and wasn't trying to be, but I was just ignorant, I guess I have to say.
Yeah.
And so I'm speaking to a lady about her screenings, and she says, I can't walk past this church because across the street's the crack house. I'm like, oh, I've never had to experience that. So my experience. And then I said, and then she told me she had to ride a bus from her area to downtown Nashville to change to another bus to go to Kroger's, and then ride back downtown with her groceries if she wanted to buy more groceries than the little mom and pop shop that was really expensive and didn't carry healthy stuff. And I just felt, if you can see I felt this tall, like an inch tall from, she wasn't trying to put me in my place, but it just said my experience is not broad enough. And it really taught me that there's a lot more. And I knew that, but that was an experience that taught me a lot more about people come from different places. And I'm not just there, I'm there to say, what can she do? She's got a lot of environmental things against her. How can she? And so it was more about, so what do you feel like you need to do? And the community started telling us how to partner with them for public safety. They needed street lights so it was safer. They needed to get rid of the empty houses and the broken cars and fix the sidewalks and have better bus routes. And it was like, it wasn't about her dieting, exercising. Yeah. So it was about other things that were standing in her way, which was something in my background I didn't grow up with.
Yeah.
I grew up differently, which is not wrong. It just is. And so those types of things show me that environmental pieces, social connections, even emotional health. If someone's not feeling well emotionally, that they can know they have high cholesterol, they need to, but that's not going to lower their cholesterol when they're having mental health issues. And, I've really become much more passionate about mental health since the pandemic, especially when I see how it really impacts our students. Mm-hmm. It's a much bigger issue than I ever have seen in my 18 years.
Mm-hmm. Sallie, I was really moved when you were talking about serving underserved, and so few of us really understand what systemic racism looks like, and that you're advocating to bring lights back in because the people there are telling you they're not there. But everything that has happened in those communities where people got isolated is structural, not personal, right? And so you go in, you're going to have you think you're having a personal conversation, and all of a sudden you're running smack dab into structures that people are laboring under and are burdened by. So appreciate you talking about being ignorant and learning in that space. I think you're a really great model for listening. And I really appreciate the way you narrated the change from telling to asking, because you never would have understood those structural limitations if you hadn't asked.
Yes, and that committee, it was really fun to work on that. The committee that I was on one section, more of the health and well-being, but other parts of the committee started working on environmental changes and structural changes, and even got somebody from the city planner on there to say, what can the city start to do? And they did stuff that had nothing to do with what I did, health screening a lady, and it wasn't just me, it was the community telling everybody. And they put a police precinct in that area. They fixed sidewalks, they put in more street lights, they started hauling away abandoned cars, they started contacting landlords for the houses that were abandoned that people were flopping in. And unfortunately my part of the grant ran out, and then I moved to Wisconsin, and I don't know, I'm hoping that they were able to continue that in that community, because people who lived there really wanted to see change.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah, when the structures got you down, they're right, and someone like you shows up and is willing to say, I'm ignorant, I can take some responsibility for this, that makes a lot of difference. So thank you.
Oh yeah, thank you so much for that. So I'm going to start closing this with one final question. When you think about women in our role in society, what gives you the most hope?
Well, I didn't go to the conference last year, so I went this year, and to see a room full of women
Can you say what
from
conference?
the Women's Trailblazer Conference,
Yeah, great.
seeing so many women in that room that were there to learn and to be empowered. I think for me, sometimes it's finding my voice, that I'm not always as good at that, of advocating for myself. And then other times I probably push too hard. But I feel like there are times, even at UW Stevens Point, where when they're planning something new, we see them reaching out sometimes to men more than women. And I'd like to find ways to overcome that a little bit more, and have more of a voice. So I think teaching women to have more of a voice, and we talk about taking on too much. I think this is just my opinion, and I've done some reading, but no research behind this, so can't say that she researched it. But I feel like that we have that helping role sometimes, so we take on a lot because we feel like, oh, this person needs it. We coulda, shoulda, woulda. I don't like the word should anymore because I try not to use that one. But that this is something that is important to take on. This is important to take on, and that's maybe why we take on too much. And finding a better voice without being labeled also.
Yes.
And I think that that's going away, but I think there's a lot that we can still do.
Yeah. So I want to summarize two things that I heard you say there. First of all, your sense of what women face is dead on. There's a book coming out in just a few months from a woman named Stephanie O'Connell. You can follow her on Instagram, on LinkedIn. She's on Substack, Stephanie O'Connell. We'll put a link in to her work somewhere in the, online. But Stephanie takes all that research that you just talked about women's labor and makes sense of it for us. And she's really summarizing hardcore research in that place. So thanks for having a sense of that. Thanks for bringing that up. And I think it is one of the reasons that we do too much, because we've got all this labor that we're carrying for society and for our families, and we want to squeeze in some stuff for us too.
Yeah, and try not to feel selfish when we do something for us, or feel guilty when we say no, or feel guilty that, okay, I'm going to lay down on the couch and take a nap today. Oh, there's that word. I should be doing something.
Mm-hmm.
Or, no, maybe today I just need a nap.
There's one more thing, though, that I noticed in your hope that really struck me, and that is the hope that comes from taking action. And I hear you modeling for us and calling us to action. As a matter of fact, I think you have a life motto that goes something like, sure, what can I do? So how do you create hope with what you choose to do, Sallie?
I think I don't know where I learned it from, but I remember when I first started in this field, I interned, and then I didn't have a full-time job, but people started asking me to do things in wellness. Like, can you come put this program together? And this was before the internet. And I'd say, sure, I can do that. And then I'd have to go like, oh crap, I got to figure out how to do that. Or can you do this? Yeah. And I would just do it. And I try to teach that to my students, even if I grew up in a lot of fear. I grew up in the early 60s. Girls don't do that. Girls don't do that. Girls might get hurt. And I had to really work as an adult to overcome the fear. And it's not perfect, but do it anyway when you're afraid. That's probably one of the biggest ones. Is do it even when you're afraid. And so saying, sure, I can do that, and then figure out how to do it. And I wish more people would give women the opportunity to try something without saying, here's the expert. He's the expert. Let's choose him.
Mm-hmm.
And I think this is sometimes that they see the men more as the expert than the women. I think we're getting better at that.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that overcoming that fear and saying, wait a minute, I've got expertise in that too. And I have a lady that I really look up to. Her name is Laura Putnam, and she has written a book that I use in my students, but she does a lot of other things. But one of the things she says about being an agent of change is don't wait for permission, and don't ask for permission. And with this mental health walk, I sent a proposal up to senior leadership, and they didn't ask me for it. They didn't even know it was coming. I was kind of scared to do it, but I was like, I've got tenure, I'm fine. And they said, you know what, why don't you come talk to us? Then they said, okay, why don't you be on the strategic planning committee? And nobody asked me for it, but I saw a need and said, here, we've got to do it.
Yeah.
And I could have gotten shot down, but I didn't.
Yeah. I could have gotten shot down. I could have gotten shot down, but I didn't.
Yeah.
Sounds like a good country and western. It's a good country and western song. I can hear the twang back there.
There's my southernism coming out.
That's right. No, I love it so much.
I also love it. I love your accent so much. It's very interesting. Like I don't really hear that. I just hear Wisconsin accents all day, every day. So it's very nice to hear a different one. But
it's not as strong as it used to be. But you should hear my family.
Wow, I love a good accent.
Born and bred down there.
Well, thank you so much for coming onto the podcast with us and talking to us about wellness. I really appreciate it. Everybody appreciates it. It made me feel super inspirational. I feel very strong right now. I feel like I could go on a run or something. I'm not going to, but I definitely could.
Yeah.
But we really appreciate
it. To go up north, I'm going to walk with my dogs.
Okay. Sallie, thank you so much for your time and energy today. And most importantly, thank you for your leadership.
Thank you. I would like to be able to do even more. I'd like to see where we can bring more of this into the MBA program. I'd like to see where we can bring more of it into they've got the new institute and our continuing education department. Mm-hmm. Where can we bring more of this in to reach more people?
Yeah, love it.
Definitely. Thank you so much.
All right, Sallie.
You're welcome.
Thank you for joining us in our 7 series titled Pointers Leading in Wellness. We hope these stories inspire you to step up, speak out, and make a difference in your own communities.
Maya Angelou once said, "We may encounter many defeats, but we must not be defeated." Let's carry her resilience with us into everything we do.
Be sure to tune in into our next series where we will continue to amplify the voices of those creating meaningful impact.
Until then, keep pushing forward, keep advocating, and hey, keep driving change.